Good morning. Welcome and thank you for coming. We've asked you here today to give you an update on the progress being made with Project Future, government's program of public sector reform, which is designed to make Caymanian public services more efficient and effective and support our drive for the long-term stability of our public finances. On the platform are the Premier and Minister for Home Affairs, Health and Culture, Honorable Alden McLaughlin, and Deputy Governor, Honorable Franz Manderson, who will speak to you shortly about the implementation of Project Future. At the end of the news conference, we will distribute a packet with the text of the two statements that the Premier and the Deputy Governor will make, and a copy of the program brief document that will be referred to. First, I invite the Honorable Premier to talk about the program itself.
Thank you, Tammy. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we provide the country and the press with this update on what used to be referred to as the EY project. But that has developed into a series of projects under what we are now calling the Project Future banner. While the EY report made over 80 recommendations, it was clear that its authors said, quote, provides indicative advice and analysis to support the government's consideration as to future action. In other words, the report was not, as some would have it, some kind of blueprint for government to follow. Even its authors acknowledged that it was only ever an aid to government thinking. Therefore, it has been right for us to take our time to carry out the further analysis that EY themselves said was necessary, and to consider properly other potential reforms that were not contained in the EY report. I'm pleased to announce that we have now completed that work, and the program brief we are publishing here today makes public the full Project Future program, which was formally adopted by Cabinet last week. Our program is ambitious and far-reaching. For the first time, the government is putting forward a comprehensive and coherent program of reform, reaching right across the public sector. As you will see from the program brief, there are currently 51 projects making up the Project Future program. Clearly, government cannot tackle all of those at once. Hence, the program is presented in 5 phases to be implemented over the next 5 years. Phase 1 covers the 17 projects we have already started. When last we spoke about Project Future in April, I talked about 6 projects that were in flight. In the 6 months or so since that last announcement, we have continued to make progress with those projects. Work to develop the business cases for the creation of a new office of the Ombudsman and a new Public Utilities Commission is nearing completion. And if approved, both will move swiftly through to implementation. Every parcel of surplus government land has been reviewed and an initial portfolio for sale has been created. Cabinet has already given approval for the sale of the first of those pieces of land. The communications project has kick-started with a capability review conducted by the UK's Government Communications Service earlier this year. The next step is the presentation of the communications capability review and its recommendations to Cabinet. We are progressing work on the business case for the potential merger of primary schools in Cayman Brac, either on one of the existing sites or a completely new site on the bluff. As you may be aware, Caucus has also asked that the possible movement of the secondary school to the new site be considered as part of the business case, and that has inevitably made the analysis more complicated. We expect the business case to be delivered in the second quarter of 2016. In the meantime, the Ministry is carrying out works at the site that can stand alone, but will be useful for school purposes should the OBC recommendation be to proceed with the construction of a school on the site. Last week, the portfolio of the Civil Service and the Public Service Pensions Board launched employee consultations on the proposed changes to the Public Service Management Law and the Public Service Pensions Law to facilitate raising the normal retirement age from 60 to 65. The consultations will continue with stakeholders across the civil service through the month of November. Feedback received from these consultations will be considered and reflected in the draft bills, which will be submitted for approval by Cabinet and onward submission to the Legislative Assembly. The forecast implementation date for the new retirement age is April 2016. In addition, 7 other projects related to EY's recommendations that were already underway have been brought within the Project Future framework. Again, there has been significant progress over the last 6 months on what are some vitally important projects for the future of these islands. That includes progress on the major infrastructure projects mentioned in the EY report: the expansion of the airport, resolving the future of cruise berthing, and solving the problem of finding a sustainable solution for our waste management needs. I will not dwell on these because there have been major announcements on the progress of each of them over the last few weeks. However, I have made the point before that progress on delivery that Marxist progressives-led government out from its predecessors is, in my view, unprecedented in our history. Other projects now within the Project Future framework are the work on promoting e-government that benefited from the visit to these shores of a team from the E-Governance Academy of Estonia recently. Learning from their experience and others, the Director of E-Government is actively working to document the government's strategy based on internationally recognized principles. This will be immediately followed by the outline business case with a view to moving to a pilot of a single service, e-government portal solution, within the first half of 2016. Similarly, our work on improving government procurement has made good progress. Work is being taken forward by the new Director of Procurement to modernize the legislative framework and devise an appropriate set of standards and tools to implement that framework successfully. He's also identifying areas where there is savings potential from government contracts. We have also continued the implementation of new ways of working, supported by a new IT system in customs, and moved forward the implementation of private sector pensions reform, which I will mention again in a short while. A further 3 projects have started in the last few months. I have said previously that this program is not about wholesale redundancies among civil servants. However, it is clear that there will be impacts on individuals, and I gave a commitment that we would manage that effectively. Hence, one of the early projects commenced has been to develop a policy to safeguard staff impacted by organizational rearrangements, be that outsourcing to a new provider or simply restructuring within the civil service. We need to ensure both that civil servants are treated fairly and respectfully, and that any transitions are smooth to ensure service continuity. EY's report referred to changes in approach that could be made by the Tourism Attractions Board. In line with their report, the board's administrative staff relocated to Pedro St. James in July. A marketing process for the letting of the Pedro Cafe commenced last month, and it is anticipated that the cafe will be leased by January 2016. And 2 new tours have been agreed with Royal Caribbean Cruises Limited. Work has begun to pave the way for a new national cultural strategy, during development of which EY's recommendations in respect of the existing cultural offer and the organizational arrangements to support it will be considered. The Ministry plans to convene the steering committee for the project in early 2016 with a view to having a draft policy and plan out for public consultation late in the 3rd quarter of 2016. We can chalk off one recommendation as complete. The EY recommendation to move the London office to the portfolio of the Cabinet Secretary was implemented in July. Not the most fundamental of reforms, I agree, but indicative of our willingness to get on with things even as we finalized the full program. The projects comprising phases 2 and 3 will be determined when we see the business cases for the 9 projects being worked on. These are vitally important projects for the future of these islands and their people. They include projects to further help tackling unemployment amongst Caymanians, the implementation of the education reforms we have currently underway, and a series of projects to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of public services, including planning and building control. We anticipate that at least some of those will be implemented before the 2017 elections, and those will constitute Phase 2. The most pressing need we will address in Phase 2 is the need to further tackle unemployment amongst Caymanians. The issue has been raised in the House and in the press in recent days. Let me make it clear that this government does not view unemployment as the fault of business. But at the same time, we do not believe that every work permit issued is a job taken away from a Caymanian. However, we do believe there is more that business can do to provide opportunities for Caymanians. We also accept that there is more that government can do. This project will refocus government's efforts into activities that make a positive difference in supporting Caymanians into employment, and it will provide a more effective framework for working with business to enable them to do more. Our economy is large, successful, and growing. In those circumstances, we should be able to say that any Caymanian who wants work should be able to find suitable employment in a reasonable period of time. Government and business need to work together to make that a reality. This project will get that done. Those projects that cannot be completed within 18 months will be planned ready for implementation immediately following the elections as Phase 3. I should say at this point that I am not by any means taking the electorate for granted. However, governments have often been criticized for short-termism, if that is such a word. And it is right for this progressives-led government to take a long-term view and to put in place the delivery of the reforms this country needs. If we remain bound to electoral cycles, we remain bound to short-term action that will not tackle some of the fundamental issues we face. Our country needs more than that. Our country deserves more than that. And that is why this progressives-led government is setting out a clear plan of future action. We're happy for the electorate to judge us on whether they agree with our plans, and we will be proud to lay a record of achievement before them in 18 months' time. Projects have generally been allocated to phases 4 and 5 because they are complex and likely to take time to plan and implement, or because the potential benefits are lower than those in earlier phases. They include the potential reform of health provision in these islands, which would fall into the complex category, consideration of options for the future of the National Mail Service, and further efficiency and effectiveness projects right across the public service. In a dynamic, well-managed program, both the content and the phasing will change. Projects currently in the program will be excluded, for example, if the business case does not justify taking them forward. Equally, new projects will be defined in response to changing circumstances. The program as drafted is therefore only the starting point and not the final statement of the government's ambition. We will keep the general public informed as changes are made as part of the ongoing reporting we will do on the implementation of Project Future. Taken together, this program will implement in full or in modified form the overwhelming majority of EY's recommendations. That should give the lie to those who say that the EY report was simply destined to gather dust. I would like to repeat my thanks to EY for the stimulus they gave the government's thinking. As I said previously, though, we have not just taken EY's recommendations on regardless. The booklet we are publishing today details 16 recommendations from EY that we will not be implementing. Generally, if something has been ruled out, it has been for one of two reasons. We have excluded some things because they clearly conflict with our policy. For example, recommendations to raise fees would clearly run counter to the commitment this administration has given to the country to seek to cut rather than raise duties and fees. Alternatively, we've excluded recommendations because the further analysis we have done indicates the benefits are insufficient to justify taking the ideas forward. This would apply, for example, to EY recommendations in respect of the Cadet Corps and SEMA. In some cases, we are taking forward particular projects very closely related to the issues raised by EY, but we have made a decision to exclude the specific recommendation they made. For example, EY's recommendation to abolish the National Pensions Board and move its responsibilities to SEMA misses the point. That is, to tackle the substantive need for better, more effective regulation of private sector pensions. Hence, we are taking that underlying need for pensions reform forward, not least with the draft National Pensions Amendment Bill 2015 currently going through consultation and finalization. As I've said before and will continue to confirm, this progressives-led government is a government that gets things done. The program brief we are publishing today is not just another report. We are publishing this program not to decorate the shelves in offices at the Government Administration Building, but as a call to action. I said at the start of this statement that this Project Future program is ambitious and far-reaching. Thus, while it is a program of reform of the public sector, it is not for the public sector. Rather, it is for the people of these islands. This program has the potential to transform public services for the benefit of our people, from improving the education of our young people to ensuring the commercial future of our mail service, from the support we offer to those who need social assistance to the efficiency and effectiveness of our public works, from helping more Caymanians into work to the everyday experience that customers have in frontline public services. The program leaves no stone unturned as we drive through much-needed reform. This progressive-led government is a government that does indeed get things done. Our program is ambitious, yes, but I assure you, we will get it done. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Premier. Good morning, everyone. So as you can appreciate, it's going to be on me now to get this, all this work done, but it's certainly an honor for me to be part of this historical event as we discuss the largest government reform program in the history of the public service. As Deputy Governor and Head of the Civil Service, I am pleased to have the opportunity to discuss the preparations we are making to ensure the effective implementation of Project Future. The Honorable Premier has outlined the projects that Cabinet has selected as part of the Project Future program, as well as those projects which focus on changes to transform the way the civil service operates in areas that impact the entire civil service. I want to sincerely congratulate the Premier and his government for their leadership and vision in undertaking this challenging work. This is an important step forward in our public sector reform journey. The decision-making framework that the government has employed will ensure that the work of the public service is aligned with the government political priorities as these projects are taken forward. As the Premier has stated, Project Future is the most far-reaching and comprehensive public sector reform program in our history, and it's now my job to ensure that Project Future is implemented successfully. There have been major reform initiatives in the civil service before that have not delivered all the expected results. This is why I'm determined to approach this program differently to ensure that we succeed. In fact, it must be my intention to exceed expectations. Why will this be different this time around? Firstly, we have completed the groundwork needed to define the changes properly. This has taken us some time, but the investment of that time up front will be crucial in ensuring success as we move forward. Secondly, I am determined that we will match international best practice in our implementation strategy for Project Future. We are introducing the use of business cases as a management tool for transparent, evidence-based decision-making for projects. We are also introducing a formal project management methodology to guide us in implementation. Thirdly, we are investing in training and capacity building within the civil service. The successful implementation of Project Future requires new skill sets and ways of working. Already, we have provided project management training for over 75 civil servants. This week, we conclude business case development workshops for 88 potential business case writers, as well as separate workshops for Cabinet and Project Future Steering Committee members, chief officers, and the business case review panel. Fourthly, we have established the Strategic Reforms Implementation Unit, SRIU. Through the SRIU, we have allocated for the first time dedicated resources to shape and drive the effective implementation of a major change initiative to provide targeted support to chief officers and their project teams, and to facilitate the training and development of our public servants. And I just want to pause here to thank Ms. Rodriguez, who is in charge of the SRU, Dr. Tasha, Mr. J, and our Harvard intern, Ms. Brianna at the back there, who has done an outstanding job in allowing us to get to this very crucial stage. Must also thank Chief Officer Ms. McField Nixon, who is here, and all of the chief officers for their hard work in getting us to this very important stage. Finally, alongside Project Future sits the work of the 5-year strategy for the civil service, which I launched a couple of weeks ago, and for which hundreds of civil servants have already been involved in. If Project Future makes clear what we need to do, the 5-year strategy will set out how we will achieve this. I have recognized the need to transform our civil service and to equip civil servants better to do the jobs asked of them. Changes in public service are therefore being matched with the technical and cultural changes needed within the civil service. But as you know, these factors alone will not guarantee our success. However, they do create the conditions necessary for us to succeed. A lot of hard work will be needed from a lot of people to actually deliver the benefits that Project Future promises to our communities. As project sponsor, I am determined to provide the leadership and support they need. I believe that the changes envisioned by Project Future brings an opportunity for an improved public service. At the same time, I am aware that the proposed changes also brings about some measure of uncertainty. And I want to assure public servants, as the Premier just did, and our community at large as we go forward, that we will keep our social responsibility at the forefront in our decision making. We will also ensure that employees who are directly impacted by change are treated equitably and fairly, helped to transition, and empowered to succeed. Some persons may view the EY report and the Project Future projects that flow from that report as a program of outsourcing. And I would just like to correct that misconception. Project Future is first and foremost about improving the effectiveness and efficiency of our public services. Many of our projects will engage us in improving our in-house delivery of services. If, as part of our investigations, we can see a role for the market, we will certainly explore that opportunity. At the end of the day, our work will be guided by a desire to achieve more for the people we are here to serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Governor. I'm now happy to take any questions, or I should say we are now happy to take any questions you may have.
Sir.
I hope you could answer some too.
Yes, sir.
Morning, gentlemen. It's Wendy from CNS. I appear to have the microphone. It's a little difficult without seeing the programme to ask questions, but let's start with one that we already know about. The merging, the creation of the Ombudsman and the merging of the Information Commissioner and the Complaints Commissioner, both of whom, when they were in office and acting people since, have described that as a bad idea, that they're not supportive of it. Is that outline business case a public document yet? And can you talk about the motivation for doing that? Because it's not exactly a big money saver. So if you could explain a bit more about that, as it's probably going to be one of the first things to happen.
I'm not sure where the OBC is now, but that is one of the recommendations in the EY report. But it's not just about saving money. It's about providing a more effective and efficient service. We just can't keep growing the public service. I mean, we get hammered by the media and everywhere else about continuing to grow the size of the public service. I mean, growth is inevitable. But where you find that there are synergies that can be combined, what essentially we're looking at is one body that has oversight of all of these sort of information, public information based issues, and is able to serve as a tribunal in instances where there are concerns like the complaints commissioner role. And I think from our standpoint, the role of providing a complaints body, a proper complaints body with respect to the police service is critical. The road down which we went before, which is actually enshrined in the law, I mean, the numbers involved in creating that kind of a tribunal are positively scary. So, it is a money issue. I don't think that those who have spoken from the Complaints Commissioner's office have really considered all of these issues and are principally concerned about their role and the significance of the Office of the Complaints Commissioner in all of this. But I promise them and the country, the government is looking very careful at all of these issues. EY looked at it and saw where it made sense. I've looked at it, the Deputy Governor's looked at it, Her Excellency's looked at it, and the OBC is, at least the draft that I've seen, is going to come back positively with respect to this proposal.
I mean, just to say that the document is just about complete. We want to run it through the Project Future methodology, so it will be reviewed by our business case review panel. That will happen in the very short term, and I would expect the final document to go to Cabinet within the next few weeks. So we're well on our way.
Next question.
Sorry, Mr. Premier, if I could just go run through a couple of things quickly. You mentioned at the start 51 projects are making up the Project Future program. That's phases 1 through 5.
Right.
Okay. So 17 of those are in phase 1.
Right.
Okay. And then, so phase 1 is things you'll get done. Phase 1 and phase 2 are things you'll get done before the next election.
We aim to get done.
Okay. Phase 3 is the things that'll be planned for but not completed before the next election.
Yeah.
Phase 4.
3 through 5. Yeah.
3 through, okay, the 3 through 5, 4 and 5 will also be somewhat planned before the next
Well,
election.
it depends how far down the track we get. As I said at the start, this is an ambitious program, and as you are well aware, we have a couple of other things we need to focus on as well. But the aim is that we would have, phase 3 sort of implementation ready following the next general elections.
Okay, that's just, I need to clear that up. Just one question on the sale of surplus government lands. Can you give us an idea at this point? You said Cabinet's already approved some of these. I mean, how much land are we talking about? How much money are we talking about? And does any of it involve, in particular, the sale of land next to the Ritz-Carlton for um, I don't know if it's called Dragon Bay, the project they were going to do over there in the canals?
Well, they, I think the number that the EY came up with was something like 6 to 5 million. That they're sort of rough and ready estimate. We've gone through every single bit of government crown-owned property and had an analysis done on it. We decided some of it shouldn't be sold. I mean, my own view is that really large tracts of land, unless there is some compelling reason, government should not dispose of those. And we've narrowed the number down to 6 to 9 separate parcels of land. I'd say we've sold one, which is a little piece of land on Walker's Road for, I think it was 103,000. It's a relatively small piece of land. Again, when the pieces of property are so small that government really can't foresee any use the government could have for them, it just makes sense to dispose of them if you can get a fair price. Now, the Dragon Bay property, I'm not sure which one you're talking about, because I mean, we've already announced, I think, our intention. The government had decided to dispose of the Dragon Bay property to DART. And what's been worked on and still being worked on is getting to what that price is. So that's really not part of this. That's something that's gone before. Well, not quite gone before because it's not completed, but the decision has gone before.
And the value of those 69 parcels?
I don't have that.
But you'd say most of them are smaller pieces of land that government just doesn't know really.
Yes, yes. There are no large tracts of land that I mean, even though the Y report, suggested we dispose of significantly more of government property, we took the view that big parcels of land, whether they are up in the East End bush or not, are not things that we should be trying to dispose of. I mean, government is not cash strapped. There's no real reason why we would sell those at this stage.
Next question.
Joe Avery, Cayman 27. I just wanted to see, I think the people in this building and on all the other buildings that are government agencies and civil servants would probably be most concerned to hear how safe they are from the acts that may or may not come through their particular buildings. Is there a magic number or anything like that of what the civil service size will be after the implementation of these phase 1 and phase 2 and then beyond?
Let me say this, Joe. The objective of this exercise is not, from our part, is not to make massive cuts in civil servants or to significantly reduce the overall size of the civil service. No. I've said this before. Our view is to seek to contain the growth of the civil service. And the reality is that demands continue to increase. On the one hand, we always have the private sector screaming about the cost of the public service and the numbers of people in the public service, and on the other hand, screaming about the need for more services or more efficient services, or as the case may be. So that's always a challenge that government has to do. So our objective is to take steps which contain the growth in the size of the public service and restrict the areas of service into which the civil service, the government, should venture. That does not mean that there will not be some rationalization, I think is the term we've used before, of the various services and amalgamations and so forth. And nor does it mean that there won't be, in some cases, some job loss. We are striving to to minimize that. And there's certainly nothing on the cards at the moment. But I can't say going through this rationalization process that every single job is going to be retained. Otherwise, there'd be little point in us going through much of the exercise. But as I said and attempted to explain in my statement, we're actually gearing up our systems to be able to deal with that and to ensure that civil servants are treated fairly, respectfully, and that we minimize the impact on, as well, on continuity of service.
Would that mean like training programs, or would that mean like a severance package? I mean, how many months like would that be for somebody that may be cut loose from a job they've held for 15 years or something?
It could mean all of the above. I mean, that's not really my forte, or that's an HR matter for the government. And as I say, we're gearing up to make sure that we are able to deal properly with those sorts of issues.
And just to add, as the Premier said in his statement, is that one of the in-flight projects is looking at that issue in terms of how we will deal with civil servants who are transitioning out of the civil service into another entity or leaving the civil service as a result of this work. And that is in its advanced stages, and we are serious about what we're saying in terms of ensuring that everybody is treated fairly and equitably and empowered to succeed in their next venture.
Next question.
Could you, out of the 51 projects that are listed in the brief, are any of them what could be described as outsourcing or privatization, or are they more mergers and rationalization rather? Is anything being privatized essentially? Are you selling any service?
I don't think that any of the 51 projects that were there actually expressly says its objective is outsourcing. But understand now that the business cases for all of them have not yet been developed. Mm-hmm. So it is in that process that you would come to a view about whether or not this particular service could be better performed by the private sector. So it's really only the 17 in the first phase that we've done all of that work on.
And I'm guessing that that's a no for any of those 17.
It's a no for any of those, yeah.
Next question. No more questions?
There was, I don't know which phase this fell under, but there was comment one stage, I think this was phase 2 or phase 3, about tackling unemployment and
Phase
education reforms. Those
Phase
are
2.
phase 2. Okay. So can we be a little more specific about what those two could entail?
Well, I think just dealing with education, I think everybody's very, very well aware of the critical reports that we've had on education. And I think most people will be generally aware also of the announcements that the minister has made with respect to the measures that are being contemplated and in some cases being taken with respect to those. So I'm not going to try to go into any more detail about that. On the unemployment one, it is quite clear to us that the way that the government system is set up in terms of dealing with labor issues, and particularly with employment issues, is not terribly effective. I mean, in fact, the NWDA was never set up, to my absolute surprise, as an employment agency. It is geared up in terms of, well, I suppose the name says that, and I shouldn't be surprised, the National Workforce Development Agency. But our challenge now, and I alluded to it in my statement, and it's been said in the House, it's being said on the talk shows, it's being dealt with in the media Brent, is, we, at a time when the economy has rebounded substantially, at a time when work permits have grown from about 17,000 when we took office to 22,000, the unemployment numbers for Caymanians are going in the wrong direction. Granted, the last ESO report showed only a marginal increase in Caymanian unemployment, but that's going the wrong direction. And so we all know that this is a complex issue, that there are a whole range of issues that impact the Caymanian unemployment rates. But we have to do more, both as government and as business, to address these issues. It is just unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable, that with 22,000 work permits, which indicates a huge demand or over demand for labor in the local economy, that you have any substantial number of Caymanians unemployed, whatever the reasons for that are.
Mr. Premier Ben Mead, when you say we as a government have to do more, what specific challenges would you be giving to your cabinet colleagues and the government in this vague, we need to do more?
Well, as I said, we've got to do a better job at identifying who these unemployed are and finding matches for them, identifying what deficiencies, if there are deficiencies, that keep them from being employed in this very robust economy that we've had. I've had a sit-down meeting with the Chamber of Commerce on Friday. I've just come from a sit-down meeting with the management of the Ritz-Carlton, because it is important that the entire business community understand that we need to work together, government and the private sector, to address this issue. We cannot simply make excuses saying these people are unemployable. If there are 1,500 unemployed Caymanians, which is the number that's being thrown around, no one is going to convince me that all 1,500 of those are unemployable. So we have to find what it is that are keeping them out of employment, and we collectively have got to address it. Otherwise, we're going to have major social problems in this country, much bigger than we currently have.
And so just to get back to what may actually happen, is the Progressives-led administration now thinking of taking some aspects of the work permit process away from immigration and putting it somewhere else? Is that what we're talking about here? I'm just not sure what actually is going to be done.
That's been mooted for forever. I'm not being or attempting to be specific in what it is that is being proposed. As I said, that is in phase 2. But the challenge we have now is immediate, and I can't wait around until we've gone through this process to make efforts to try to get more Caymanians in jobs.
Next question. No more questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.